everyone, that's Black here, and welcome back to my game corner. Hope you're doing fine, because I certainly am. And welcome to the second video in the Doom video series. In the first video, we looked at the entire history of the series that once changed the world of video games. Today, we'll talk about the first and second parts of the series, look at some of the features of these games, and generally discuss where it all began. Before the video starts, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click the bell button so you don't miss new videos on my channel. Sit back, grab some snacks, and let's get started. So, first of all, let me briefly tell you what Doom is and explain why we're talking about it. I talked about most of the information and details about the game's development in the previous video, but here we'll briefly go over the game's features. First of all, Doom was released on December 10th, 1993. It is a revolutionary 3D, or more accurately 2.5D, first-person shooter created by the then very young studio id Software. Designer John Romero and programmer John Carmack are considered especially responsible for the achievements and uniqueness of Doom. At the time of its release, Doom consisted of 1 free and 2 paid episodes, which, according to Google, cost $40. The game itself was created for MS-DOS, which stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System, and was written in the C++ programming language. In fact, Doom can be considered one of the first computer games in history, given that earlier games were only for consoles or arcade machines. But this is not certain. But what is certain is that Doom turned the idea of games and the entire gaming community along with it upside down, being a 3D first-person shooter. However, you can listen to more about that in the previous video. Of course, Doom was incredibly popular. It was bought in huge quantities and many people played it without stopping. Therefore, the release of the second part was only a matter of time. So, on September 30th, 1994, Doom Hell on Earth was released, which was almost no different from the first part. Only new levels and a few new enemies were added. This is why in this video I am talking about both parts, because as a rule, everything that applies to the first automatically applies to the second. At that time, people could only run Doom on MS-DOS. Which, by the way, would change in 1995 when the game would get a console port, but now the average player is presented with 3 different versions of Doom. The MS-DOS version, if you want to feel old, the regular PC version, if you want to play comfortably, and the Doom Eternal version, if you didn't buy the classic Doom on Steam but bought Eternal. Hey, buy classic Doom already, seriously. Is it really that comfortable for you to play it inside of another game? But Alex, what's the difference between these versions? Which one should I play? Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'll answer the first question, but you'll have to answer the second one yourself. Let's look at all these versions to see what the difference is. In general, the modern PC version and the Eternal version are essentially no different from each other. Well, except for the fact that in the PC version you can choose a new version of the soundtrack, in which, in fact, the soundtracks are simply more rock and noisy or something. I like the original more, honestly. And the fact that in order to play classic Doom and Doom Eternal, you need to work a little. So, how to open Doom 1993 and Doom 2 in Eternal? Well, the second Doom is available at any time. The computer in the Slayer's room will simply ask you for a password, which is Flint Taggart, which, by the way, is considered by some to be the canonical name of the Slayer. This name also originates from the Doom novels, by the way. For the first part of Doom, you will need to try a little harder. Not only you will have to go through the entire main campaign of Doom Eternal, but you will also need to collect each of the 14 floppy disks, aka cheat codes, and only after that you'll be able to play classic Doom inside Doom Eternal. To be honest, it seems to me that the color scheme of the game is also a little different from the classic, as if it is lighter, but I'm not sure. In general, this is a very good additional entertainment, but I still think that buying classic Doom will be more convenient. But still, it's your business anyway. Classic Doom is generally fine to play on a modern computer. The controls are convenient, there is even a crosschair, but you still can't turn your head up. Although there is no real feeling of an old game, it really plays very smoothly. I launched the MS-DOS version recently and was very surprised. I may have heard the word DOS before, but I didn't really pay attention. I really thought that there was probably no difference. Oh, how wrong I was. As soon as the game opens, some strange sound immediately hits your ears. Let me show you using a Doom's Gate as an example. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? At first I thought that it was just a feature of this version, which was added for a better atmosphere, but no. This is exactly how the game sounded in 1993, at least judging by the videos where Doom is launched from a floppy disk. Holy shit, yes, all this time we were listening to a not quite original version of a Doom's Gate. Wow. The second thing that caught my eye, or rather my hands, was that the game is controlled differently. Completely differently. Let's take a look at this controls list. Beautiful, right? And here are the controls from the modern version. Do you see the difference? No, I'm not talking about the fact that one is controlled with arrow keys and the other with WASD. Although I'm talking about that too, actually. In short, the DOS version can be controlled with a mouse. Yes, you can play it using only the mouse. In fact, at first I tried to play it with arrow keys and turn my head with a mouse, but in the end, controlling only with a mouse turned out to be much more convenient. It's so unusual, unfamiliar and strange, but I liked it so much that I played this version for a very long time. So, what do we have? The main difference is in the controls and sound. The Eternal version also looks a little different visually. By the way, it seems to be a more intermediate version between the classic Doom for modern PC and for DOS. Another important detail, in 2024, a fusion of parts of the classic Doom into one installation happened on QuakeCon. Now it is enough to simply go to Doom plus Doom 2 and the wonderful world of parts and versions of classic Doom will open up to you. Which includes much more than the first two parts of Doom. The only thing I do not know and cannot check is whether it is possible to play Doom 2 through this version without buying Doom 2 separately. It seems that people say that it is not possible and the game still needs to be bought, but I don't know for sure. I bought everything a long time ago. In any case, if you want to hear my opinion, I advise you to buy both parts and try to play the DOS version first. You will always have time to play the modern one, especially since we're all accustomed to this convenience. But this version will give many a new, unusual gaming experience. So, we sorted out the versions, chosen our favorite and most convenient one. What's next? Play. No, what kind of question is that? You know what to do when you've chosen a game? You can't leave it on Steam unopened for a few years, right? Okay, jokes aside, we're going to talk about important things here. Now we're going to talk about the plot of Doom. At first I thought I would show you a text screen with the backstory of Doom, like who you are, who you play as, and all that. No, it's not that I don't know this story, I just sincerely believed that I saw it on such a text screen. But when it didn't appear, I decided to test my knowledge and search the internet. After googling, I found out that I have the Mandela effect, and I went a little crazy. In fact, the screen I'm talking about never existed in the game. I assumed that the information about the backstory could have been written on the back of the box or somewhere else, but correct me in the comments, I can't know for sure. Well, then you'll have to take my word for it when I tell you the backstory. And yes, there is a plot in Doom. I'm not kidding. No, I'm not crazy. No, I didn't copy it from some fan fiction, and no, I'm not talking about the modern parts. There's been a plot in Doom since 1993. And no, I'm not talking about the Bible of Doom. In fact, the plot in Doom is, firstly, very simple and essentially unimportant. And secondly, it is constructed in a special way. For starters, the plot in Doom is shown through text screens at the end of episodes in the first part and before certain levels in the second part. The story itself is told as if it's about you. That is, you is used throughout the text. You did this, went there, and all that. All this helps the player to feel like the main character of the story. At that point, Doom Guy has no character or history in the usual sense. Here he's basically like one of 100 of the same military men, just stuck in a more colorful story than the rest. However, our hero does have some kind of backstory. So, Flint Hoggard is a former Marine sent to Phobos to work for the UAC, United Aerospace Corporation, where he had to tediously monitor toxic waste. How did he get there? Well, he just beat up a superior officer for ordering him to shoot at civilians. What a kind hero, isn't he? Okay, just kidding. Anyways, something terrible happens on Phobos and a portal to hell opens and demons start pouring out. All of Doom Guy's colleagues are killed and now he has to get out of Mars. Afterwards, the story goes simply: destroy the invasion of Phobos, then on Deimos, then on Mars, then on Earth, and then Doom Guy locks himself in hell, beating the demons' faces in on their territory. Or in some such sequence. Oh, and also, there is a moment where Doom Guy finds his pet bunny named Daisy killed by demons, and after that his only goal is to kill every demon in the world, because how dare they lay a claw on such a precious little baby. Basically, that's the whole premise and plot for the first parts. Simple? Yes. Was it enough? You're still asking, of course. Well, we've talked about the plot. Now let's talk about the gameplay, and listen, you've been watching me play Doom for half of the video, shooting demons and all that. Do you still have questions about what gameplay is like in Doom? Okay, I agree. I sounded rude, sorry. In fact, Doom is obviously a first-person shooter, so the entire gameplay is about running around the map and killing demons. In essence, this is the main backbone of the game. Demons, of course, are different. Some shoot fireballs, some come closer to bite, and some are not visible at all. Variety, what can you do? In essence, all demons have roughly the same idea. They just deal different amounts of damage and have different amounts of health. Besides killing demons, there is a lot of wandering in the game. Some doors are locked with color-coded keycards, buttons, and God knows what else. You go to one place, then back, then somewhere else. The levels are generally pretty confusing. At least that's what it seemed like to me. In some cases, I could spend about 20 minutes on one level, sometimes a little less, but I don't think I ever sat there longer. Oh yeah, the game doesn't save automatically. You have to save yourself, and that's why I save so often. Usually after each level, at the beginning of the next one, or after some difficult moments for me. So sorry if the save menu got boring for you as the video progresses. I already had it happen that I lost 20 minutes of the game because I forgot to save, so now I'm paranoid. Naturally, there are first aid kits, ammo, sometimes spheres, and of course colorful keycards scattered around the levels. Something like that. Well, that's where my story about the gameplay ends, because there really is nothing more to say. Doom is a game that you should play yourself, rather than listen to someone explain it to you. After 30 years, the game still feels fun and addictive. And this is not only my words as a fan of the series. My friends who played Doom just recently for the first time agree with me. Some people even thought that the game was fast. This surprised me a little because after Eternal, and especially speedruns of it, few things seem fast to me. Yes. But the game is still very relevant. People still make a lot of maps and content for it. And this is worth a lot, especially after more than 30 years of existence. So, Doom went viral. The game was liked by the vast majority, and by the end of 1999, sales had already reached 3.5 million copies, and the number of players has exceeded 15 million in the first 2 years after the game's release. Such success can be explained by several factors. Firstly, the game, or at least the first episode, was distributed as a shareware, which made it very accessible. Secondly, the game was innovative, special, and showed new technologies in all their glory. Thus, Doom received the status of the father of first-person shooters and became one of the best and most significant video games in the industry. Thirdly, deathmatch. Well, how could it be without it? Playing with friends on a local network was generally the main pleasure of many players of that time, as, by the way, its software themselves can prove. In general, Doom was a very successful project. However, while some were having fun, others were already sharpening their pitchforks on the game that had suddenly captured people's minds. The accessibility of Doom and its subject matter led to a huge number of disputes and discontent from various sides. It all started with employers who were extremely unhappy that their employees were clogging up the local network with death matches instead of working. In fact, its software assumed that something like that could happen and were almost completely right in their predictions. In any case, these complaints were in general more or less expected, and were just the tip of the iceberg compared to what happened next. The next to join the panic were the parents and the church. The parents because the poor children had access to the game, and of course such cruelty and violence showed in the game is unacceptable for them to see. The church was mad because the entire game was fixated on images of the devil, demons, and all that satanic stuff. Of course, the violent side of the game played a cruel joke on it, but such a nightmare as with Postal did not happen in this regard. I suppose that this is also due to the fact that the game turned the gaming community upside down. If you want to support me with more than just liking and subscribing, consider checking out the link in the description. There you can donate any sum of money starting from $1. Any donation is appreciated. Thank you in advance. Before we move on to the next part of this segment, I want to say that it is generally quite hard for me to talk about this. Talking about my favorite game in the context of such tragedy is not the most pleasant thing, especially since I'm a very soft person. Therefore, I will not talk in detail about what happened. If you are interested in learning more information, please Google it yourself. So, on April 20, 1999, something terrible happened. 2 teenagers executed a planned shooting at Columbine High School. This tragedy is listed among the worst school shootings in the United States. But how does this relate to Doom? The focus of our attention will be on Eric Harris. Eric was a huge Doom fan, a Doom community enthusiast, if you will. He was developing maps for the game. There is even a PDF with Harris's personal notes, which include various level designs and very disturbing notes. The guy wrote that Doom had become such a part of his life that all his thoughts were somehow connected to the game. Harris' most famous map is UAC Labs. As far as I understand, you can still play it, but I didn't. Sorry, I can't help myself, knowing what kind of person made this map. It is important to note that despite the fact that it was made by such an awful person, the map is made pretty well and has special, more bloody animations for the death of the enemies. However, in addition to this, it is surrounded by very creepy statements from Harris. And if in my opinion the description ending with "kill them all" is not so scary, then here is a fragment of copyright with a threat to blow up anyone who changes something in the VAD is already alarming. It is believed that UAC Labs is one of the first slaughter type maps due to the large number of enemies. It is understandable that Harris had deep psychological problems that led to the tragedy, but this did not save its software from further lawsuits. Many other companies were affected, but in the end this lawsuit brought nothing, and the tragedy remained just a terrible part of history, one way or another connected with Doom. And now a bonus! Of course, I couldn't leave you without a little bonus in this video. Now we're going to talk about the coolest phenomenon associated with Doom. Will it run Doom? What hasn't Doom been ran on? Electronic stands in McDonald's, pregnancy test, on a toothbrush. What's more, it was even launched on potatoes. Well, in general, why can't Doom be launched on everything? Well, first of all, they gave us the code. Speaking without much humor, John Carmack, after the relative success of Wolfenstein, already understood perfectly that since the previous game was modded, this one would be too. And in order to simplify people's work and give them more opportunities, he decided to give them everything. Thus, in 1997, the source code of Doom became fully available, and off it went. People began to make different mods for Doom and modify the game. Of course, when the code was published so that people could modify it more easily, it also meant that it could be ported to other devices. The game as a whole was not particularly demanding, as we'll already know, which is why it generally only required a screen to run. They even managed to launch Doom in Windows Task Manager. What's more, they launched it everywhere possible. It seems that if something can't launch Doom, it's worth thinking about the quality of it. Not so long ago, in March 2025, news ran across the Russian internet that enthusiasts were unable to launch Doom on a computer with a Russian processor Baikal because it did not support a number of instructions that were used in the engine. They were also unable to emulate the game. In general, this matter has been going on for a long time, and since 2022, Randall Peterson has been working on this project, but his verdict was simple. In short, nothing will work unless you rewrite everything from scratch, so you will not have Doom on Baikal. No matter how funny it is, that's the situation. In fact, many blogs on the Russian internet wrote about it, but now you know about it too. So here is the first processor on which Doom could not be run. Jokes aside, it's really fun to watch people run Doom on everything. It's always a surprise to see what the enthusiasts come up with this time, especially when you don't know anything about it. So, the first two parts of Doom are especially amazing and exciting games that once turned the worldview of video game fans upside down and founded one of the coolest franchises in the history of video games. I think I told you everything I wanted to share with you. I hope you enjoyed listening to me and learned something new for yourself. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell button to get notifications of my new videos. Write something in the comments if you want to. And that's all I had to say. Have a nice one. Bye!